What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is Legitical Response. Now, I came across this very, very interesting article that was based around a poll that was taken about democracy. So, you know, that's one of my favorite topics to talk about, democracy. So we got to get into this. Check this out, y'all. Poll. Majority of U.S. adults say democracy is on the ballot, but they differ on the threat. That is right. The political landscape these days is just getting outright insane. You know, with Joe Biden dropping out and Kamala Harris stepping in, it's becoming just, we have no idea what's going on. What at all. Just outright, we have no freaking clue what's going on, what's going to happen in November. You know, Donald Trump was surging. One of the most amazing things happened. Right? We get this situation where somebody tries to take the life of Donald Trump. Right? A huge news story. It's going viral everywhere. Everybody knows about it. Everybody's talking about it. And then, boom, a week later, Joe Biden decides to drop out of the race. And all of a sudden, nobody's talking about the assassination attempt anymore. Nobody's talking about Trump surging in the freaking polls. Everybody's talking about it. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Wonder why. And everybody's attacking Tim Walz relentlessly on everything, right? Look, he's made some false statements. As a matter of fact, we covered some of that yesterday. He's made some false statements talking about weapons of war. He doesn't want people in Minnesota to have the same weapons of war that he carried in war. Well, you know, fact check, come to find out, he never was deployed to war. He was talking about he was deployed, blah, blah, blah. Some of the statements are intellectually dishonest, if you will. He's being quite ambiguous. He's making a statement that is technically true, but it's meant to make you think it's something totally different. Like the statements, I can't remember the exact statement right off. I'm sorry, y'all, but basically he was talking about when he got deployed to Italy during the Afghanistan war, but he said it in such a way that it makes you think that he was deployed to Afghanistan. Yeah, you like how they word stuff. You got to watch their wording, y'all. These people are crazy, but we're not talking about Donald Trump getting assassinated anymore. As a matter of fact, I tried to cover a second story talking about a guy that got arrested who was from Iran, or he was a Pakistani national, I'm sorry, but he was working with Iran in an assassination attempt on Donald Trump's life that was caught by the FBI, right? That story didn't go freaking anywhere. I never saw any mainstream news cover it. I never saw any other pundits cover it. It was like, there was another assassination attempt and nobody freaking covered it. Why? Because everybody's over here excoriating, Tim Walz and J.D. Vance and Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. That's all we can seem to talk about. It's crazy. But let's get into this poll because, yeah, we have some people out there that are lost, folks. Roughly 3 in 4 American adults believe the upcoming presidential election is vital to the future of U.S. democracy, although which candidate they think poses the greater threat depends on their political leanings, according to a poll. Of course, that's always going to be the case. But a lot of these people are somewhat misinformed on the facts, especially when it comes to Donald Trump, because we know the corporate press loves to lie about Donald Trump constantly. So it is not unreasonable to assume that a lot of Democrat voters who watch MSNBC, watch NBC, ABC, CNN, and all these places to get their information believe some of the lies coming out of the corporate press, right? Because the corporate press makes it believable. Right? A lot of the lies. Once again, we cover this all the time. They twist the narrative so bad to make you think this when it's really that. It's intellectual dishonesty at its best. The survey from the Associated Press Nork Center for Public Affairs Research finds that most Democrats, Republicans, and independents see the election as very important or extremely important to democracy. While Democrats have a higher level of intensity about the issue, more than half of Democrats say the November election is extremely important to the future of U.S. democracy, compared to about 4 in 10 independents and Republicans. Yeah, and you wonder why this is. right? You might think, oh, they're more intense. Of course they are. You've got MSNBC and CNN and all these places comparing Donald Trump to Hitler. They'll take something Donald Trump says out of context and put it in a whole different set of context. And it's like, hang on, that's an outright lie now, right? Like poisoning the blood of the country. He was talking about Democrats and their open border policies are poisoning the blood of the country. But the corporate press takes that and is like, where have I heard that before? Oh, that come from Mein Kampf, Adolf Hitler. So then they start comparing things Donald Trump says to the same things that Adolf Hitler says, implying that Donald Trump is essentially like Hitler. He's echoing Hitler, y'all, without actually calling Donald Trump Hitler. But the intent of that is to make you think that Donald Trump is Hitler. And that's what they do, calling Donald Trump an existential threat. Existential threat. That means the country is going to be taken over by a radical dictator, right? And I am not shocked to find that Democrats and people that buy into the corporate press narrative actually believe this garbage. It's insane. Democrat Pamela Hansen, 67, of Amory, Wisconsin, said she has grave concerns for the future of democracy in the country if Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump gets elected. His statements tend towards him being a kind or a dictator, a person in charge by himself, Hansen said. I mean, the man is unhinged, in my opinion. Now, what I would ask for this lady to do is go listen to a Donald Trump rally. It is not unhinged, I can assure you of that. And if Donald Trump wins, or I'm going to say when he wins, we have no idea, but I'm really hoping that Kamala Harris doesn't win. But if Donald Trump wins, you will see. I mean, just look at his previous administration. Was he a dictator? No, he wasn't. You can't be a dictator in the United States. As a matter of fact, the machine in Washington, D.C. will not ever allow any one person to be a dictator. It just won't happen. I'm sorry. The country was built up too well by the founding fathers for anything to take it down, such as that, such as one person. Sorry, that's never going to happen. But Republican Ernie Wagner from Liberty, New York, said it's President Joe Biden's administration, of which Vice President Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee, is part, that has abused the power of the executive branch, which this is true. Now, Donald Trump did that a little bit as well, but not nearly to the extent as Joe Biden. But that doesn't mean we're going to lose democracy if Kamala Harris gets elected. No. If Kamala Harris gets elected, we're just going to see 4 more years of the last 4 years and probably swinging a little bit harder to the left. I don't think the economy can handle it. The economy is showing some really bad signs right now because these people are going after the oil industry. And we all know the oil industry is the bread and butter of our economy. Right? It's always been, ever since the discovery of oil, right? Ever since internal combustion engines became a thing and gasoline became ubiquitous across the world. Oil and gas industry has powered our civilization, for crying out loud, and these people want to take it away. That's why I say the Democrats, with their insane policy, are trying to destroy civilization, trying to destroy this country. And I don't mean physically. I just mean that they're going to tank the economy with their insane policies. Biden has tried to erase the student loans, and he's been told by the courts that it's unconstitutional to do that, said Wagner, 85. He's weaponized the FBI to get his political opponents. This is all very true. The poll findings suggest that many Democrats continue to view Trump as a threat to democracy after he tried to overturn the results of the 2020 election, embrace the rioters who attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021, and threatened to seek retribution against his opponents if he wins re-election. Now, there's a lot to go over with that. Okay, so you love how they say that, challenging an election, because if you think there's a lot of fraud that went on, you're going to challenge the election, right? Because you think there was fraud. That's apparently now overturning an election. trying to overturn an election, trying to stay in power. You love how they word things. You know, legitimately challenging an election through the court system is now viewed upon as traitorous acts. You should be locked up and have the key thrown away. You're trying to become a dictator. And you're trying to overturn democracy, apparently, if you legitimately challenge this through the court system. It's insane. Also, embracing Capitol rioters? No, I'm sorry. I've heard a couple of times Donald Trump outright say the political prisoners. And what he's talking about there, he's not talking about the people that were violent. But the corporate press, they love to twist things around. Most of those people that were arrested on January 6th were not rioters. They were peaceful protesters that just so happened to fall prey to Joe Biden's weaponized FBI and DOJ. Yeah, peaceful protesters were arrested. The vast majority of those people on January 6th were peaceful protesters. They weren't violent. They didn't fight with cops. None of that garb. But they were arrested for doing so, and it's insane. But let's keep going. But they also indicate that many of Trump's supporters agree with him that Biden is the real threat to democracy. No, he's not a threat to democracy. I mean, he is a threat to certain things, right? Going after speech on social media. Biden most definitely has done that. Asking social media to take people's posts down, to have people banned outright. That's insane. That's a violation of the First Amendment. But that doesn't have anything to do with my ability, your ability, or their ability to go and vote for your representative, to vote for your president, vote for the executive branch, vote for anything. It doesn't impede on that whatsoever. Trump and his allies have accused Biden of weaponizing the Justice Department as it has pursued charges against the former president over his effort to halt certification of the 2020 election and keeping classified documents, though there is no evidence Biden had any involvement or influence in the cases. I'm sorry, that is just not true, right? Like, sure, saying any involvement. Okay. Whatever. However, that statement, once again, they're trying to twist the narrative on you, right? Joe Biden oversees the executive branch. The DOJ falls underneath the executive branch, for crying out loud. So, yeah, it is Joe Biden that oversees all of this. So, yes, it is Joe Biden going after his political opponent. Trump has framed himself as a defender of American values and portrayed Biden as a destroyer of democracy, which is, he's not a destroyer of democracy. I'm sorry, I don't like Joe Biden, but he's not going to destroy democracy. Nobody is going to destroy democracy. No single person. I'm sorry. It's just BS. He said multiple times after he survived an assassination attempt last month that he took a bullet for democracy. This is true because Trump doesn't have to be in the position that he's in. He doesn't have to be doing this, in other words. He doesn't have to run for president. He knew running for president meant that people were going to start taking a lot of shots at him, whether it's metaphorically or actually taking shots at him. He knew that. He knew the risks. But he loves this country, and he wants to change, make America great again, bring manufacturing back, secure our southern border. There's nothing wrong with these things. Trying to eliminate some of the bureaucracy from the federal government. There's nothing wrong with that. But Democrats, they'll whinge and say, oh, well, he's trying to become a dictator because he wants to fire a bunch of federal employees. Well, I'm sorry. We have a deficit problem in this country. We have a spending problem in this country. And bloating up the federal government is not helping this, right? Most of that problem comes from Social Security, to be honest. Most of our spending issues, we spend most of our money on Social Security, Medicare, and all these government welfare programs, and our defense budget, by the way. A lot of those pet projects and pork stuff that Congress signs off on, yes, that needs to be eliminated too, because you could cut billions and billions of dollars just from that. But we need some restructuring going on in our government, and I don't see any establishment politician, Republican or Democrat, doing that outright. The poll, conducted in the early days after Biden dropped out of the race and Harris announced her campaign, is an early glimpse of Americans' views of a reshaped contest. Majorities of both Democrats and Republicans say democracy could be at risk in this election depending on who wins the presidency. Responses generally in line with the findings when the question was last asked in a AP NORC poll in December 2023. Hansen, the Wisconsin Democrat, said she worries Trump in a second term would use the conservative-dominated U.S. Supreme Court to overrule important freedoms. She is also concerned that he would fill his cabinet with loyalists who don't care about the well-being of everyone in the country and defend agencies that regulate key functions of society. I'm sorry, but that's just not going to happen with Trump. Yeah, sure, you want people that are loyal to you in your cabinet. All politicians do that. Every president does that. I'm sorry. That's another one of those things, the misinformation coming from the corporate press talking about Project 2025. It's just insane, right? These people flip their freaking lid because a think tank did think tank stuff. Like, come on. But Wagner, the New York Republican, brushed off those concerns and pointed to Trump's time in office. When he was in the White House, we had peace, we had prosperity, we had energy independence, he said. What's undemocratic about that? He said he didn't think Trump's intentions leading up to and on January 6th were criminal. I just think he was misguided, Wagner said. Some independents also are carefully considering the stakes of the upcoming election on the country's democratic future. I believe that this is the most important election of my lifetime, said 53-year-old Patricia Selgia Williams of LaValle, Maryland, an independent who is leaning towards voting for Harris. Williams said she's barely scraping by on $15 an hour as a hotel breakfast attendant and remembers Trump handling the economy and immigration well, but she didn't like it when he recently quipped that he plans to be a dictator on day one in office. Come on, lady, that was a joke. Really? I mean, Donald Trump is a freaking comedian. He's constantly just saying a bunch of random dumb stuff. Right? Some of these people are just insane. But once again, that's the corporate press. When they'll show you a clip of him saying, yeah, I'm going to be a dictator on day one so we can bring back energy independence or whatever the hell he said. Right? And MSNBC, they'll take that and flip that and they'll start talking about, they'll frame it first by saying, oh, Donald Trump wants to be a dictator. Look what he said. It was a freaking joke, right? The brainwashing coming from the corporate press is insane. We all know Donald Trump could run the country, she said, but he's just too aggressive anymore, and I don't think I can trust that as a voter. Not everyone agrees that this year's presidential election will be an inflection point for the country's democracy, offering starkly different reasons, according to the AP NORC poll. About 2 in 10 Americans say democracy in the U.S. is strong enough to withstand the outcome of the election no matter who wins, while another 2 in 10 believe democracy is already so seriously broken that the outcome doesn't matter. Now, I believe that too. I think our democratic institutions in this country are strong enough, right? Like a lot of Democrats, they were so worried about freaking January 6th and all this other garb, but our democracy worked, right? Donald Trump lost the election because Democrats stole the election, honestly, fairly. They changed the rules and changed the laws around voting, around ballot harvesting, mail-in ballots, universal mail-in ballots, all that garbage. They changed the rules to pretty much give themselves a leg up in that election. They didn't tell Republicans what they were doing. To me, that's cheating. I'm sorry. Once again, it's analogous to a baseball game, right? You got Democrats versus Republicans. You go a couple hours before the game, the Democrats coach goes to the MLB officials and says, hey, I think we got an idea for changing the rules around stealing bases or something like that. Right? So they go and they're like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do it. And then they change those rules and don't notify the Republicans. So when the baseball game starts, right, Democrats start stealing bases in what used to be an illegal way. And the Republicans are over here like, what's going on? That's fraud. You can't do that. And the MLB officials, you know, the umpire, he's like, oh, no, everything's fine. Look at the book. That's what Democrats did, essentially. I'm sorry for this. I don't know what happened with this, but there was just an abrupt change in topic on this story. I don't know if there was some kind of glitch or they missed a couple of paragraphs or something, but here we go. Harris has focused more on the concept of freedom in the early days of her campaign. She has said Trump's re-election could result in Americans losing the freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, and the freedom for women to make decisions about their own bodies. That is just outright lies. I'm sorry, that is outright lies. Freedom to be safe from gun violence? Huh? Right? They keep going in on Trump about abortion because he put the justices in that would go on to overturn Roe v. Wade. I'll say it that way because that's factual. But it's insane to me that he comes out and he says all the time he would support like 16-week, but he likes it being with the states. But they don't care. They'll still get out there and tell everybody that Trump wants to ban abortions outright. It's a bald-faced lie. But you can't expect better from Democrats nor the corporate press. Her debut campaign ad last month was set to Beyonce's 2016 track Freedom, and it has become a campaign anthem for her at rallies ever since. Harris didn't mention democracy in her first two presidential campaign rallies, but she returned to the topic in remarks to Sigma Gamma Rho sorority members in Houston last week, saying, "Our fundamental freedoms are on the ballot, and so is our democracy." No, it's not. I'm sorry. Not a single person isn't going to take our country down, right? Donald Trump coming into office is going to be, it'll be okay. It'll be kind of milquetoast. I will be over here complaining about some of the stuff Donald Trump does while praising some other stuff that he does. He's not going to be the best president ever, right? He was a very good president, best president of my lifetime, but definitely not the best president in American history, right? Donald Trump has some flaws, right? He spent a lot of money. He spent a whole lot of money, right? Kind of dropped the ball with COVID a little bit, but, that situation, it's like, what do you do with that? A global pandemic, we haven't seen one of those in I think it was over 100 years. So what do you do with that, right? Like, who would have done a better job? We have no idea. Could have been a worse job, that's for sure. Look at some of the Democrat governors, some of their states. But, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about democracy, and I've gone for pretty long on this one. So it really, really pains me to see, people buying into the lies, buying into the corporate press narrative. But I get it. I understand. I used to be one of those people. I thought the corporate press, yeah, sure, they lied about some stuff, but I thought that most everything they said was truthful until I find out it's not. And then I start doing this on YouTube, and I start finding, holy hell, these people are just lying at every single turn, right? They'll give you a factual statement, but they'll twist it to make it seem like it's something different, right? Like the whole Donald Trump thing with all the hoaxes around Donald Trump. Those are blatant, but it's really subtle on a whole litany of different topics, right? And it just gets crazy, and that's what I'm essentially here for, is to try to correct that narrative. But I want y'all to let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comments section. I've went long on this one. Sorry, y'all, but that's all I got for this one. I want to thank everybody for watching, and y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.